mm, mm.
Hey folks, it's Clay and Sandy. We're back for part five of our just beginning connection conversations. And how are you doing today, Sandy? How's the weather treating you here in New York City?
Oh, it's being kind to me. It's being kind to me, so I have no complaints right now.
Yeah,
Yeah, look, I love the fall weather. I love spring and I love fall. So because it treats my body and my joints very well nowadays, So
love it.
so I'm okay with that.
I was like, let me break out my little fall hat, my little crisp cardigan, and
I
the
see
weather.
that you're looking too cute.
Thank you. The weather has definitely gone from like our late summer vibes to full autumn here. We're now probably like 56 degrees. Everybody's bundled up. They're in their scarves now, and I think we have made that transition very seamlessly.
I
Right.
believe so.
Yeah. So, Sandy, I want to segue our conversation. We've been having robust talks about the just beginning process. We're talking about vulnerability. We're talking about what older adults are seeking, what they need, and things like that. One of the parts that came from the just beginning conversations that we've been talking about offline is the need for community. What are the things that prevents us from being in community, especially at this stage in life? And what are the things we need to run towards in order to have that sense of community? So, first, for you, I just want you to level set us in your own personal definition. At this particular point in your life, how do you define community? What does that mean for you?
Right now, my community is um it's kind of like branches off into different uh avenues. So for example,
Sure.
um I've had to open myself up because I was a caregiver for so long. I had basically cut myself off and isolated myself in
Mm,
one way without realizing it wasn't intentional. It's
mm.
just part of the course, I think, that happens to a lot of people, especially caregivers.
And this is
Uh,
pre-retirement for our
before,
listeners.
right, this is pre-retirement. So a lot of my community pre-retirement was basically people at work, staff, what it didn't matter if it was housekeeping or the people that I interacted with, the food trucks,
Yeah.
or just little, you don't realize who you see on a day-to-day basis, that you kind of like build a bond and you check in. Oh, how's your family? Oh, your child is, you have those quick little conversations and stuff
Yeah.
like that, and stuff like that. So I that was those were my people, that was my tribes,
Mm,
basically work, co-workers and stuff like that. And because of all the years I had there, a lot of those people that I work with became a part of a different kind of family outside of work, where we associated, got together to go to dinner or go to happy hour or different things like that.
mm,
And I still keep in touch with them. I'll text them like once a month and things like that. um, but after the retirement and being a full-time caregiver, I lost that connection because I
mm.
wasn't seeing the same people on the buses or the guy on the coffee cart, or
Right.
different things like that. So
Did you consciously think of them as community when you were in their day-to-day interactions and connections?
yes and no. I call
Mm.
them my people, but
Yeah.
I didn't think of them as a community until after I found myself that I was like, I didn't have that, I kind of felt isolated. Like,
Mm. Yeah.
it struck me when I was sitting here and I'm thinking like, I have my best friend and I have other people that I call, but that it struck me one day just knowing, wow, that interaction that I had, just the same passengers you see on the bus because you're taking the scheduled bus at the
Right.
same time and stuff like that. It just hit me, and then I'm realizing through the work that we did together, that that was my community. That was in one way my an extension of my tribe.
What is so interesting, and this is just such a fascinating conversation. We typically, and I know for myself as well, we don't recognize each siloed forms of community a lot of times until we are out of that. Like literally, if you're going to get coffee outside every single solitary day, like you're saying, if you're going to get your lunch from, the food truck or the cafeteria, or if there's a bagel spot, if you are getting your, paper at the newsstand, and the people you see every day, sometimes you get to know them by name, you know them by
Yes.
their hair, you know them, by perfume or cologne they're wearing, or whatever the case may be. And those different forms of community then becomes our day to day. And when we're out of it, it's like, oh, I never even recognized that this was a
Yes.
part of my community.
Yep, and then it hit me like a ton of bricks because I was like, it's that realization when it hits you, like,
Yeah.
oh my God, now, it was feeling alone and disconnected
Hmm.
to a different world. Now, did I have my children? Yes. Do I have my grandchildren? Yes. Their spouses and stuff. So then I started realizing that the extensions of their friends and their community were the ones that then, because then, oh, they would call me and tell me, listen, how are you doing? How's pops doing? This, that, and the other. And
Mhm.
then the holidays, because I also saw them while they were growing up. I've been
Right.
to their graduations. I was there for when they got married, when they had their babies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
When they were in college, they were coming over to eat dinner for Thanksgiving, and then they would sleep overnight on the living room floor. Like,
Yeah.
it's, so then there was that, but to be quite honestly, while I appreciated that because of where they were at in their life,
Mhm.
their chapter of living with child rearing and work and stuff, there was a little bit of a disconnect.
Mm.
Like, I could relate to a lot of things, and they were always very gracious, and we talked about an extraordinary amount, and they got opinions from me, and I was learning from them. It's not the same like when you have those where you grew up from very similar eras and had the same life experiences, regardless of where you were, where you were living, whether it was in the city or in the suburbs and stuff. There was a lot of things that were life experiences that just was straight across the board.
Like your peer community.
Yes.
Yeah. And so what I'm hearing you say is community is not one particular definition. Community is multifaceted,
Yeah.
and we experience it in each waking moments of our lives, whether it's unconscious or conscious. Is that
And that would be correct because now with going food shopping, like I've been doing home delivery for certain groceries and stuff like that since COVID. And
Mhm.
it's interesting because some of the drivers that come back to deliver are repeats.
Yeah.
So now when I see them, I go, "Oh, how you're doing and everything." "Yeah, how's it doing?" He goes, "I haven't been in this in while." He says, "Oh no, let me help and get this inside for you." And my the UPS guy, I know him on a first name basis, Ben, and I know about his family and stuff like that because at one point he was here delivering all the medications and the infusions and everything that I needed for my husband. So that now have become my people where we talk about, if I'm outside and he's delivering, hi, how's everything going?
Right.
Do you need anything? It's the thing, the person at the pharmacy now, and the small grocery store, the deli where I go to pick up my fresh vegetables or
Mhm.
ingredients or stuff like that. So what I had while I was working, now I had to develop and work with them and stuff like that. And the cashiers at the registers from the different places that I go, you start developing. It's weird because sometimes I stand outside with my cup of coffee, and there's people that work at the hospital that park in this residential area,
Right.
but there's repeat parkers, right? So I
Right.
see them, oh, good morning, how you doing, everything, and they're like, hi. I says, have an easy day and stuff like that, and it's those quick good mornings, or the people that are
Mhm.
walking their dogs or getting their kids off to school
Yeah.
that you see on a day-to-day basis that you start building a familiarity with,
Right.
and it's
Mhm.
it's a good feeling. It's a nice feeling.
And so sometimes we stumble upon communities that we don't even know that we're actually building a community within. Like for me, I go on my wellness walks every day, and I usually go around the same time, and sometimes it differs depending on like the workload and things like that or whatever is happening. And I'll see certain people, the mom pushing her stroller, the dad pushing the stroller, or people going for their runs and things like that. And so one time I saw someone who I had not seen in a long period of time, and she goes, "Where have you been?" She doesn't know my name. I don't know her name at all, but she's an older adult that walks around sort of this track area close to Central Park every single solitary day. There's another group of moms who all have their coffee and then, they're talking with their kids and they're letting their dogs run. And I heard someone say the other day, because he had his dog off the leash in a on a dog run, and someone with him said, "Do you know those people?" Because the dog just, darted off towards the other dogs. He goes, "Oh yeah, they're in our dog community." And the lady goes, "You have a dog community?" She goes, he was like, "I don't know any of these people. It's just that we hang around because of our dogs."
Hmm.
And so imagine, especially later on in life, you have this huge community that you're working with. And then for you, in your case, not even knowing consciously that each step that you're taking outside of your house, you're building and building, building up community. And retirees are going from that a lot of times to nothing at all and not preparing for that community that's being lost in
Yes,
that transition.
and it's kind of like we don't even realize that we have to rebuild some of those on our
Mm,
own. And sometimes we're rebuilding it, but we don't even realize like that we are doing that. But it's just in the pleasantries of saying good morning to someone, or like even in when I'm pulling in the bins from the recycling after sanitation's picked them up, and I try to be watchful now to see who the regular people are, like just with the mailman and
right.
stuff like that. Uh, because, when the holidays come around and stuff like that, I always like to give them a little tip and stuff like that. And it's not for the fact of the tip, but to let them know that I see them. Sometimes it was just a matter of a gift card, because I would notice that they had like a Starbucks thing on their truck when they're coming by and stuff. And
Right.
sometimes that makes just a little bit of a difference from,
Mhm.
like one day I had my hand wrapped up in a brace, and I'm out there and they're saying, "Oh, good morning," and everything, and all of a sudden, "No, no, 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 I got this," and they pulled everything in for me, and that was an extra step that was done, and this is before I started getting to know them on a regular basis, but it's I think just the smile, the good morning, you start like that and you start building,
Right.
and it's I call it the little domino effect, and it helps.
I was doing a national radio tour, and one of the hosts, I believe it was one of the Michigan shows, he said to me, the epidemic of loneliness among older adults, it's just this huge, rampant thing across oceans, across continents. We are feeling it, and he said, we're all lonely. A lot of folks are, but in particular, older adults. And so he was saying, what is it that's happening, especially as people are entering into retirement, that they're not considering? And what we're talking about is one of the things I answered him with, that people don't prepare for the community aspect of it, losing that community. And so one of the tips that I gave him in our conversation was, if you're about to enter into retirement and you know consciously like this is happening, start to have luncheons, start to have coffee, start to have, inspirational inquiries around what other people are doing, whether they're in retirement, younger groups of folks, or people who are just in your peers, so that as you transition into this next phase of your life, It's just the community transition, so you don't feel that you are alone. One person in particular, he knew that he was leaving the education arena, and you could imagine,
Mm,
being married to an educator, all of the kids, all of the parents, all of the other educators and the administrators, how huge and vast that is to then go to not having that at all. He went to go volunteer at a museum here. And before he retires, like, well, let me start to get that ball rolling. They end up offering him an opportunity as a part-time job, and now he had a different level of community. He goes, had you not said that to me, I don't know where I would have been in thinking about
right.
community and how to transition that. For you in particular, especially, someone's gone through it, what advice would you give to your contemporaries in helping them think about what they can do to prepare for creating community in their new and next life chapter?
I think the advice would be very similar to what you shared with this gentleman, because I'm going to be told this from my perspective. It, like I said, I had no concept whatsoever. It hit me out of nowhere.
Mm.
But I'm also the type of person, I guess because of the type of work, I don't have a problem saying good morning to people or smiling or stuff like that, and continue to work on it. I think I would tell, and but this is the when you're going through the process of working and going into retirement, uh, sometimes we get boxed in thinking that we don't have enough time
Hmm.
to do well. I gotta get home. I gotta do the food shopping. I gotta fix dinner and stuff. So how am I gonna go about
Mm.
creating this new
Mm.
community? So when I'm making my transition that I'm leaving here, I have something there. But it just may be in the simple mindset of, you know, what do you do in your spare time? What are your hobbies? What are your interests? Can you sign up for something so this way you can start doing that? Or maybe taking notice of, if you're not aware who you know who your mailman is and stuff because you're not at home,
Yeah.
depending on where you live, it's to I think when we all come home from work, we all have a place that we stop, that we make a pit stop. So I think it's about doing that. If you go to a church service, or if there's some place at the your kid's school, depending on where they're at in education, there's got to be some place, a bingo hall, how do you call it, a book club, or just something. Even if you're on social network, I mean, we have the internet and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
maybe it's thing of, maybe if you can't physically get out because of your job and your hours, maybe finding something that you've been wanting to do that you can do online and do with a group of people. I think
Mm.
we just have to get a little bit creative with all the resources we have at our hand and look for that, and sometimes try something new and different. And you know a lot of
So it's
people
kind,
are going back to bowling, and but
yeah.
but it's like you says, even your walks, if you're taking those walks. And uh my daughter-in-law went to Central Park because it was a Shih Tzu, something with all the Shih Tzus.
Uh-huh.
I never seen so many Shih Tzus in my whole life in Central Park, and they're jumping around in there. So that's another community. And people were just laughing, and I love animals. They don't care. They just get in there and they just
Yeah.
start playing with one another and stuff. We got Sometimes I think we could learn so much from them, but
So it's like just continuing the life that you've already had in a different facet. But why is it though, Sandy, a lot of people who are entering into this transitionary state, it's like just because that is done, it's like the other things are also done as well. What is it that's happening for people where there is the self isolation because the work is done and the community in that aspect is done, that's creating so many individuals who feel isolated and alone and like they don't belong anywhere.
I think one of it is because I could be totally wrong. I think we've been, I'm going to use the word programmed
Okay.
for lack of a better word. But for me, I'm going to say we've been programmed that retirement was an ending.
Hmm.
And we never discussed what the next part was going to be.
Mhm.
So we don't even know how to prepare. I think you put that with most people when they retire, if they're not forced to retire, are tired.
Hmm.
And if they had not have a good experience with their work where they're retiring from, there may be some emotional uh, connection of being a bit bitter.
Hmm.
So you're sad and you feel discouraged.
Hmm.
Also, but if you had a great time and if it was something you loved doing that you could no longer do, then that's a grieving and mourning process
All in its
because
own.
all in itself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So any kind of loss, whether it be the loss of a job or a loved one, there's a process because remember, if you really enjoyed what you were doing and you had to leave because you could no longer stay, whether because of age, they phased out the work, or you physically couldn't do it anymore, whatever the reason may be, they're downsizing, they're relocating, whatever it is, if this is how you identified yourself and who you thought you were,
Mm.
so now it's a loss. It's you have to grieve and mourn that because we didn't stop to think, okay, who I'm going to be after this person.
Right.
I mean, I definitely didn't think about it. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I didn't stop to think what I was going to be doing or planning or anything.
People don't think of this time as a invitation towards renewal because there have not been a form of curriculum, a form of conversation on the global stage in terms of what are the steps that take place while you're transitioning. What are the things that you may feel? And what you're talking about is that grieving who you once were, grieving the excitement of what you had, the excitement of what you didn't have, grieving uh, 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 being bitter from a job or even decades of something that you just did not want to do. And you're maybe tired in this next phase of your life. And you're like, well, I've given, to something that didn't give anything back to me. And so it's multi-layered and it's multifaceted. But I think you hit the nail right on this head when you said there has to be, or we're inviting other people to consider what is your grieving process and what is it specifically for you that you may need to grieve?
Exactly. Because I think for everybody it's going to be different. And like I
Yeah.
said, depends what their career, how they saw themselves, the experience they had through it, what whether or not, like you put, did they receive something from it or did they just pour into it and gave and didn't get anything back? We don't stop to think of all those things and how it impacts when somebody may be a machinist working on some place and is physically drained, right?
Right.
Year
Yeah.
after year being there. Oh, here's a great party, you get a nice watch, you get some kind of bonus and stuff like that, and you go home and you sit in the chair and it's like you're thinking, okay, maybe now I get to rest, and there's so you take a couple of days, a month or whatever, but then it's
What else? What's next? Like,
you find yourself putzing around and wondering, now do I notice the pain in my right knee a little bit more than I did before because I had to get up and go to work regardless of whether I felt this pain or not because I needed that paycheck, right?
right.
So now do we submit to the pain of the knee and get a little bit lazy, or
Mm.
do we bother going to the doctor, or do we put something off because I don't have anything going on in my life, so there's always tomorrow. And then we
Mm,
just procrastinate and put other things off. And nobody's helping you how to do all these things, you
right,
know?
right.
And things start piling up, and then all of a sudden you go, holy crap, how did I get here? Like, and it was just slowly, it was just building up, building up, building up, building up.
Just building up. And it reminds me, it's one part in the very beginning of the pilot of Just Beginning where Sharon talks about um, there's so much riding on this retirement. I know I've said this before in previous conversations. For the first time, there's so much that I get to feel I'm going to get to be a regular person. And then I explained to her, I said, you've had many transitions, but your transitions had not been met with closure. And so imagine what you're saying. You're moving, 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 moving slowly, 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 slowly. And as you're going through different things, different life experiences, we're not closing up those gaps in terms of what did it teach me? What am I grieving? What is it that I need to release? What do is I need to walk towards? And so in life in particular, I feel human beings, especially your generation in particular, had to transition because life called so much for it. If you look at all the different movements that you all have been through, and you've had to just transition, 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 no one stopped to say, "Hey, Sandy, do you have any closure? Do you have any?" And it just seems like you just go on and on and on and on, and then you get to this particular point in life, and then you're like, "What do I then do next?"
Right. And you're just in that mindset of going, 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 going. And everything for me was like it came to a screeching halt. And I was like, okay, what now?
Yeah.
You know?
And there are so many different instances where we are placed in life and there aren't conversations around that grieving part that you're talking about. I think about when I left seminary. And so I finished at Princeton a month before finals were done. So I were interviewing all kinds of different things. It was not any one thing that could fit what it was that I wanted to do. And I was just trying to just find all kinds of, different industries, anything that I could think of and all that, right? And so at the end of this process, I'm like, well, what the hell do I do? There was no one to walk me through different options, different
Yes.
thoughts, different anything. And now all of a sudden, I'm no longer in a community of other, Princeton folks. And now I go back to Michigan where my parents are and became a complete nightmare not because I wanted to, but because the transition had no closure. I had no one to walk me through possibilities for utilizing my specific skill set, my specific gifts and talents, and help me understand where life was calling me next. I had to discover that all on my
All by
own.
yourself. Yep.
And
Yep.
so I'm imagining for your generation, what the hell?
And
How
it's
go ahead.
no, exactly the same thing. And that's it just carries over. But like you said, I didn't think of it as closure as you put it, but that's the perfect statement for it. When you don't have closure and then you get thrown into or find yourself in a position where then it's like okay, and then there was, like you said, no support, no guidance, like here file for your social security, do your pension thing and stuff like
Mhm.
that. And
Keep talking. I need to charge my laptop in.
so if while you're going through this whole process, especially when you're dealing with trying to file and get yourself together to do your retirement payments and stuff like that, sometimes even the people on the other end that are supposed to help you navigate this don't have the right information and are not skilled at it. And then that's another layer of frustration,
Right.
of lack of information. Like there's no handbook or anything like what to prepare for.
Right. And especially with the emotional, the mental clarity and the spiritual
I don't
pieces.
I don't think we even think of it. We don't think of how it's going to impact us emotionally and mentally
Say
until you
more.
until you wake up one day and you find out, why do I feel this way? Like, that's what drew me to just I was feeling horrible. Like, I'm a caregiver to my husband, and I had all these things going on inside of me, and clearly there was so much that I had to be sifted through of, how my retirement came about. Now I'm a full-time caregiver, all the changes I had to adapt to. I but I was still on the emotional roller coaster and grievance of losing my job, or being having to leave my job, not being and not realizing that I was grieving it, right?
Right,
Because
right.
I wouldn't even have thought of it as grief until later on,
Mhm.
uh, where my identity was trying to find my new flow within myself, even within my home. It's, because for a little bit there, I had to like adjust because my son had been staying home during the day to care for his father. So Adam was there. He had his routine set up. And here I'm coming out of left field one day. And so now who's in charge during the day when you have two people that used to share the different you can't have two commanders in chief at
Right,
the same time, right?
right.
So nobody I wasn't prepared for that, but I did realize a level of awareness from the type of work I did. I says, no, I'm gonna have to integrate into this very carefully and navigate because and it was interesting. We both got up the morning and we both looked at each other, and he was getting ready to do the coffee and I was going to set it up. And we just stood there and we stared at each other, and he goes, "So are we both going to do this, or or do you want me to get this and I go and you go do this?" And I was like, it just hit me. I says, "You know what? You go do start off your routine." I says, "What do you normally do with pop and stuff like that?" He goes, "Well, normally this happens." I says, "What do you need me to do? How I can help you? Like,
Mm.
what was on your list to do today?" He says, "Oh, I was going to do the laundry and stuff." I says, "Well, can I do that? Can I start that while you're taking care of this?" So that, and we had to talk and negotiate.
In community.
Yeah, it was like, because now there's two of us,
Right.
and he already had his routine with his dad, the medication, the stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I had to like find, we had to slowly do the integrating and also telling him, now you can take a step back and maybe lean into something more that you want to do for yourself,
Mhm.
and then there was that adjustment for him, you know?
And see, and this is what we're talking about, all these different adjustments, and we don't take the time to assess not only what we're experiencing, but also what we're feeling. And then here it is, you've lost this community from work. You're now in this community at home in a much more concentrated way. And you're like asking yourself and your son, in this particular point, where do I fit? Where do I
Yeah.
belong? Is that,
Yeah, that was basically it,
yeah,
because I was trying to find, okay, where's my niche in here? Like, I knew my niche after 7 o'clock at night, okay?
right.
But
When you would come home from
when I
work.
was coming home from work,
Yeah,
and I knew what my routine would be and where I fit in and what I had to do and how he could lean back, because he had to get ready to go to work at night and stuff like that, then to be like in the morning. And but
yeah.
yeah,
You bring up something that I, I love how you talked about how later on you had realized that you were grieving and that you needed to have a grieving process. I think people don't experience community or think about community be as being in community with yourself as the first entry point to even know that something is going on. And what I mean by that is a lot of times when people are feeling lonely or they're feeling isolated, a lot of a lot I find is because people oftentimes aren't in community with themselves and asking, how do I feel? Why do I feel this way? Is there anything else that I can then do to help out my own personal situation? Because when we self isolate or when we don't feel like we belong, I think we don't stop to ask ourselves, do I feel like I belong within myself? Do I feel like I belong within me? What is it that I am feeling? In your case, I'm feeling grieving, a sense of I'm grieving something. When we are able to be in community with ourselves, I think, firstly, it allows us to see what we're missing and it gives us courage to say, this is what I need to your external communities. Is that something you can support? You agree with that?
Oh, I agree with that totally. And I don't, I mean, I don't, I don't know, I can't pinpoint at what point I I chose or learned or became aware that I needed to look more within myself. But I do know for a fact that because I was the oldest in my house and stuff, I was being given a lot of responsibilities and things like that.
As a kid?
As a kid,
Mm,
I found myself very much having being by myself alone, having
mm,
to figure things out. So I spent a lot of time, and also the fact that I'm an introvert, you
mhm,
know, but I didn't realize that at the time.
mm.
Through the years, people would say, well, my sister would tell me, she says, people think you're stuck up, and I keep telling them, no, she's okay. She's a good person. They says, but look at her face. She don't talk. She don't say anything. I said, I ain't got nothing to say to them. We got nothing in common. So what am I going to open my mouth for? And I was okay with that. Why would it bother you that I'm not speaking to you? But that's who I was. And I was okay with that because I knew there's nothing wrong with that person. We just got nothing in common. I'm listening to you. In my head, I'm thinking, okay, that works for you. Don't work for me. I'm not in agreement, but who the heck am I to disagree with something that you're enjoying that I clearly don't think it doesn't make sense to me, but you're
Right.
happy. It brings you joy, right?
Right.
So go on and have your joy. But it was, and I didn't realize that I was an introvert, to be honest with you, until close to my 30s,
Mhm,
because I always felt conflicted. I knew that I was good with being alone by myself,
mhm,
but I also had great times like with certain people in groups of being myself and talking and joking around, right?
mhm,
So then I would get these things. Oh, we saw you at the party at the thing, and you were having such a good time, and you know, we were surprised to see you get on the dance floor, dance by yourself, do this and that and the other. And in my head, I'm thinking, and I tell them, yeah, well, there was people there that and then you have to. I learned how to pick my words, right? Because I said,
mhm.
oh well, I know this person, I'm comfortable there. So what are you saying? You're not comfortable with us? Like people get offended so quickly
Yeah.
that so then I had to change my language. No, it was a good day for me. I was feeling good. I decided to be, because you don't want to hurt people's feelings,
Mm,
but I didn't feel like I needed to open up about.
mm,
So I got up and I did the electric slide by myself, and I was the only one that, who cares, like.
mm,
But so it was then that I learned that I was selective. I was introvert extrovert, but it depended on who I was like.
mhm,
But in that process, I also had to learn how that before I could open my mouth to speak to someone, how something wasn't working for me or wasn't working at all.
mm,
I learned really early on that I had to look at myself and what my role was in it.
mhm.
And if
Mhm.
I wasn't, so then to be able to explain to them, break it down. And
Right.
when they tell me, well, what do you mean it's not working? I said, well, I've tried, and to be methodical, I've tried A, B, C, and D. It doesn't work this way. I've tried it this way. I took your notes. I did this, that, and the other. This is not working. We need to, put our heads together and figure something out. With that, learning that, when I was going through all these different emotions were starting to surface after retirement,
Mhm.
I told myself, I says, well, you may still be angry and bitter about how you had to leave your job. You're taking on all these new responsibilities. And this is, from the gate, from the minute you wake up and your feet hit the floor, the
Mhm.
mindset is the care and level of care that your husband needs. And you're just going, going, going. There is no someone to come and cover you
Mm.
for lunch.
Right.
There is you don't have backup in case you find yourself in a situation where you need an extra hand or someone to hold him in place. And this is after Adam had an opportunity to start working during the day
Mhm.
and do something, to try something new, right?
Right. Mhm.
So I didn't have staff or people that I could call on.
The community you were used to.
Right, when
Yeah.
I was working, so it was a different level of work. I didn't have housekeeping to come and empty out the trash and stuff like that and would tell me, "Okay, I took care of this room and that room," and I thanked them and knew that that part that was already no, now, you know, I'm the kitchen, I'm the cook, I'm the housekeeping, I'm the
Mhm.
laundry department,
Mm.
I'm the nurse, I'm the one that's doing the vitals, I'm the physical therapist.
Yeah.
I'm also the, how do you call it, the social worker and the patient advocate and the wife and the comforter and the, you know, with no backup and no stuff. So when you start playing, you have all those on your plate and you start feeling some sort of way and it's not right to feel this way, like,
Mm.
you know, and you're dealing with someone that is sick that you have compassion for. I says, there's nobody here but me, so I need to figure this out.
And just think all those different roles that you named, those were actual people.
Yes,
And those actual people were a part of not only your community of camaraderie, but also your community of support.
yes,
And so you've transitioned over into this next wave of retirement to this next life. And all of a sudden you look up and you don't have that level of community and all the different layers that they provided you something. And clearly you offsetted that by providing them something. But there is not that group to be with you and have that sense of belonging in a group that you had before, and all of the weight of the responsibilities have then fallen on you.
yeah. Then that's so when you have those people that are retiring and then becoming also caregivers for someone at home, whether it be a parent, a child, or a spouse,
Yeah.
or just a family member when they're helping, it's it's an intense juggling act that they're
Yeah.
doing.
And it sounds like from what we're unpacking in this conversation around that community piece, take the time to prepare yourself in your interests, in your hobbies, and schedule it as best as you possibly can in terms of what newfound community could look like for you in your next, chapter. To ask yourself, be in community with who you are as an individual to see what are some things that you need and what are some things that you don't need anymore. What are things that you are afraid to say? And leads me to my third point. A few weeks ago, you talked about when you were going to the seminary program that the first thing you said to the group was, I'm looking for my tribe.
Yeah.
You knew that in that transition, you needed to find a new form of community.
Yep.
How did you get there? How did you get there? Because like the examples that you gave in terms of what other people were looking for, you were the one who said, I need community. I need my folks.
I feeling alone. Um, I'm not gonna say outcast, but it was that feeling of aloneness and understanding that I couldn't be the only one feeling that way.
Mm,
Number one,
hmm,
and telling myself there's got to be somebody else that's going through this also, and maybe they're not sharing it or expressing it. And I knew that that's what I needed, whether through this class or maybe for somebody. I was just open and I really wanted to find my people, find a way of, how do you call it, find my place.
hmm,
So I was already getting reacquainted with myself. I was already in the process of healing my 10-year-old child within me.
mhm,
And I was already in the process of closing down, tying up loose ends with different aspects of the different chapters in my life, coming to terms with it. Because of what happened with my childhood, now I had been understanding, oh, this is why I
mhm,
was like this, and going over it and breaking down and making peace with it. And
hmm,
I'm okay. And this is why having a better understanding for me, because I'm the kind of person, for me, I want to know the whys. Why did this happen? And why did I react this way? And why didn't I see this? And when I started getting that, then I realized, okay, then, so where I was a level of awareness that I'm an introvert, but I also know that I need my people to be with,
mhm.
so that we can, either comfort one another, have conversation, encourage one another,
Yeah,
advise, and just to grow from there.
yeah. When you said, um, I knew that I could not be the only one feeling this way, and maybe I was just the one to just say it first and to say it out loud. Sandy, I cannot tell you, especially in that first consultation conversation that I have with clients or anyone who's trying to better understand just beginning, the stories that we end up telling ourselves around assumptions and around things that are absolutely not true at all. And so, for people who have created the story that I am the only one that feels this way, no one cares about me, no one wants me to be a part of a community, no one wants what I have to offer, what would you say to them?
That it's a lie. Stop lying to yourself. Or at first I was asked this, what gives you that impression and who told you that?
Hmm.
What makes you think that you don't have something to offer, or
Yeah,
that you're not of importance and stuff like that? Because I can understand how different things may get you there. So the thing is, my first question would be, I said, well, who told you that and why you feel that way? I would
yeah.
scratch that surface first,
Hmm.
and then tell them that's not true, that's false.
Hmm.
And then start asking them, in a perfect world, a perfect scenario, if you could have anything you want, what would it be? and if they couldn't answer, it says, okay, so what's your happiest memory or thought about yourself? Something that makes you smile.
Yeah.
What was the best time of your life that you wish you could recapture again? Because sometimes by asking ourselves those questions, we'll hit upon something that maybe has been so buried underneath or lost in our memories that we've forgotten about, that just sparks and go, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden triggers, oh, you know what? So and so is like, it just sparks and it opens up um just a whole new avenue
Yeah.
of people and ideas and an energy and a sense of hope,
The power of
and possibilities and things like that.
yeah. Yeah, keep going, keep going.
And I had a similar experience like that with my cousins. I had an aunt that passed away, and she has a daughter and three boys and stuff like that. And in making all the funeral arrangements, we sat down at a restaurant to eat, and we started talking about our childhood.
Hmm.
How dysfunctional, messed up we were, and all the different the things that you just do as kids, teenagers, and separate things. But we also spoke about what we had lost sight of was how, in different stages of our lives, regardless of what we were going through, we were always there for one another.
In community.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we didn't, I came home feeling so good and fulfilled
Mm.
because I brought to the surface that I had been feeling empty because losing my mom, losing my favorite uncle, his wife, having lost my husband. The four of us, we had, I was going through pictures of when I got out of high school, when we decided to get married. All the pictures just included the four of us and stuff. We had a whole bunch of, I would get out of work, I would go to my aunt's house. My uncle had already started cooking. She would be getting home from work, this, that, and the other. That foundation of belonging, of feeling loved,
Yeah.
I saw it dissolve because now they were all gone.
Right.
And I was feeling very empty inside, like there was a hole inside of me.
Mhm.
But yet, sitting down with my cousins, talking about this and remembering how they were there for me when my brother passed away, when there was a situation where I didn't have to say anything. I looked up, and all three of my cousins were just standing there asking, how do you want us to handle this?
Mm. Mhm.
And they're not cousins that I see all the time or that I call all the time.
Right.
But there's that connection where I left with, like, wow, I'm not alone and I'm not by myself.
Yeah.
And that just fills me up inside. And I started thinking about how grateful I am, but also I couldn't get over how I lost sight of it.
Mm. Oh, that's good.
And I was thinking to myself, when
Right.
did I lose sight of this gift?
Mm.
Because it just, I had to sit back and I was like, yeah, they were here for me for this. And I remember this and I remember that. And then they reminded me, they said, girl, did you forget you would have us over all the time when we were little, and we would drive you crazy and you'd be walking all over us because we'd be sprawled out in your living room on the floor. And you just like, okay, guys, just settle down. Like, because I was the older cousin. So
Mm.
it was like, you know, they talked about going to, when I would take them to the museums. And we went to this with you and we went that to all the education, and you will break down this and that. And they says we were a little bored, but we learned stuff and they says, oh yeah, I remember when I learned about this from you and stuff like that. And eating what's on your plate, no, I'm not going to make you a separate serving of this and stuff. Like
Yeah.
they brought back the memories of things that I have forgotten. And I just started cracking up and I said, oh my God, I have forgotten about that. And not realizing that we were building that bond, and yet that now, here we are together, and that love and that foundation is still there. It never left.
Yeah.
It's just sitting there for when they says no, when you need us, this is it. We're here,
The
you
power
know,
of story has the ability to not only heal, but to create community.
to create community and to remind us that we're a part of a community.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to dig in there, pull out those pictures, reminisce, and so the one thing we're trying to do now is after we take care of, all these personal things for the weekend and stuff. Um, I told them, I says, listen, we have to do something like maybe once every 3 months, a quarter or something
Mm.
of just getting together.
Yeah.
We'll get some food together and just sit. I says, and either meet in a public area or come to the house. And then I said, this way we can just get together and just talk, eat, break bread, and talk, and just remember and remind ourselves. And my cousin's son was there, and he has three kids, and he was sitting there. He was taking and asking so many questions, getting so much family history. He goes, but wait a minute, when did this happen? What uncle was this? And you really did that? And so what happened in this situation? And you guys really did that? You behaved that way? And I says, yeah, it's not one of our proudest moments, but that's part of growing up. So
Mhm.
he saw the humanity in his uncles and in all of us, but he says, wow, you guys been through a lot and yet you're still here.
Hmm. So much I want to say. So, like in this instance, here it is. The power of story is not only helping you all remember and you remember, it's now setting up additional community for you guys getting together every 3 months or so for dinner, for reconnecting and all that. And the extension of additional younger folks to not only want to be a part of this community, but wanting to understand you all more.
Yeah, but it also, what it did was, a little fire up underneath me. I was going to use a bad word,
No, you can.
but it lit a fire underneath me that when I got home, I says, I says, this place, I need to fit, I've been talking about painting and I haven't gotten around to it because I've been on this emotional roller coaster, but now I have this, like, I really want to get this done now. Like, I have this new sense of energy, motivation, maybe purpose is another way to, like,
Mhm.
to and I says, no, I says, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to call someplace. I'm going to find out. They're going to come like for next week's. Okay, what do I have to do? And just pay the money and just paint everything, clean everything up.
To
Like
start hosting things, you're saying.
so I can start entertaining, because that was one of the things that I also took a lot of joy in. I like people that I love, family and stuff. I loved the
Mm.
cooking and having the food and just having a whole bunch of people. I love hearing the laughter and the stories and the pictures. Like, they were saying, I says, oh, I remember when we went to your house for this and you made all this food. And where did you get the pastrami roll from? And this, that. They were throwing so many questions. And I had to think, I was like, oh my God. And one of them was like, oh, do you remember the Thanksgiving where you cooked there? 50 of us showed up and we were just all on top of each other. They says, do you remember the sofa and the chairs being piled up in that small room that you had so that you could clear out the living room? And
Mm.
and we rented the tables, and they just started like,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
was like, I says, you guys remember that? Says, yeah. They
Mm.
says you made like 5 trays of mac and cheese, and we put the sodas outside because it was so cold because there was no refrigerator, no room
Right.
in the fridge. So it's I think it's things that I sometimes we have to go a little bit back to those moments or
Mm.
just talk about them.
Yeah.
And even if it's getting on the phone with a friend that you have that's living in Florida or something that you had some amazing times with, you know,
Right.
it'll help you, and I think it'll help that person,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know, and maybe give them a little push or inspire them to do something.
And that is why I think it's sort of like the epicenter of just beginning, why this work was so important to be shown as a storytelling vehicle. Why stories was so important. And just in even reminiscing, your little cousin who said, "Oh, I didn't know that's why you do so and so." It takes me back even to the screening where so many people were able to, your family, Sharon's family, were able to understand a different side of you all because they now knew your story.
Yes.
And those bonds and the community was able to have different conversations. And a lot of those conversations helped you guys bond even closer to your family. And so, even in this sense of transitioning to retirement, don't forget the stories of your life and going back and assessing and remembering why you matter and to who you matter
I
to.
know you exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes, that's just gonna open up. I just feel like for me, having this moment that even in a sad moment of putting our my aunts to rest and stuff like that,
Yeah.
that now we're finding a different way to celebrate one another and to honor one another and honor the family and stuff. And all of them, they have kids and grandkids already. So now
Hmm.
it's like bringing in that generation in,
Yeah.
because I've been bumping into them, and they're grown now, and like they have their kids, and it's like, oh, I remember, when they start telling me how they remember different things that I had totally forgotten about, that I was like, oh wow. And it touches my heart because it was something small. It's all the small details you think that you do out of love, that you
Right.
don't think is going someone's going to take in and remember, and it's going to impact them. To
Right.
hear that, how it made them feel, or that it was their best memory, it's like a healing balm that puts on you, like you go, wow, I did that, like I was part of that. And
Right.
you start realizing that at least for me, that a lot of the things that I did that I didn't think mattered was seen, and is a happy memory in someone's heart or in their thought.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's worth taking that leap.
It's worth taking that leap. I think we underestimate the power of story. Throughout my entire career, throughout my entire life, I unconsciously did not know in each of the transformative moments that actually shifted systems, shifted culture, or shifted something within me or someone else, I've always utilized story in my work to move something, whether it's myself or other people. And one of the reasons why I wanted to take just beginning beyond one-to-one coaching and to allow other people to experience this on a big screen, whatever that is for them, is to help people remember that their stories matter at any given age, any given state, any given time, especially to a group of people whose stories underserved and untapped in the world at large. Imagine what could happen for other folks to be able to have what you just had with their families, sitting down to reminisce, sitting down to have that power of story. And I think about the just beginning process in general, how the stories that you and Sharon both shared has created a domino effect of other folks who want to be a part of our community and asking, how do I get my story out there? And how do I heal my story? And how do I then take all those parts to become who I want to be in this next life chapter because I still matter. My story matters.
Your story matters. And then, like, I feel like I'm living right now my just this part is like an extension of my just beginning life. This is like
Mhm.
a different life experience because of everything of the story from just beginning and the work that we were able to do and stuff like that. um it's I didn't know what to expect. I didn't have any expectations, but the growth and the empowerment and the freedom
Mhm.
that I'm experiencing and living
Mhm.
is worth the work. But people have to be able to open themselves up, be a little bit vulnerable,
Mhm.
and they don't have to come out all at once, but little by little,
Yeah.
you know, you do it and you do the work and stuff like that, and and tell your story because your story is important. You may not think you got a story to tell, but you have no idea how it's going to impact somebody else. Somebody else may need to hear their story to give them hope, to have a sense of community, to know that they're not alone. But somebody's got to be brave enough and courageous enough to open it to and to do it afraid,
Mhm.
and to step up and come forward and say, this this is my story, this is what I'm dealing with, this is what, help me peel back the layers and figure this out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So next week, Sandy, I want to continue this in a part two. I think we have really pulled back the layers to break open community as story, story as community, to give some real tangible insights on how people transitioning into their next life chapter can utilize story to bring a layer of fullness and new beginnings in terms of not only who they are, but who they are becoming and what they can do in this next life chapter.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah. I want to honor your aunt and dedicate this conversation to her. Can you just share her name and a little bit about her and what are some of your most fond memories?
Mm.
Take your time.
Well, we were blessed to have her 93 years. um Her name is Juana, which is Spanish for Joan Corredor.
Mm,
Um, she worked as a machinist in Manhattan, believe it or not.
mm,
She worked the machines that made all the medals for the military during
wow.
the wars and stuff like that. She did that work for, I think, 40 something, 50 years.
Mm,
Um, she raised four children, one daughter and three boys. She also helped raise grandchildren,
mm,
and she was a woman of faith. Um, by example, she led a life that was of this little woman just by example, just got up every single day and got dressed, put her little kerchief on her head, and went to work. Rain, snow, heat, and worked in that a factory, because when you're a machinist, it's like a factory type of thing, and did that work to help care to maintain,
Mm,
to support her children and her household.
right.
She was just a woman of great strength and a lot of courage. She was
Mm,
a real example of, no matter what was going on in your life, just we're gonna get up, we're gonna and pray and just keep going.
yeah.
So, so I understand why she made it to 93 years, and I'm gonna miss the hell out of her, at least physically.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Sandy, for sharing. And we wish you a blessed and sacred weekend of celebrating her life and the countless blessings that are will come from her memory.
Amen. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
yeah. Folks, you can find out ways to connect with us in the Just Beginning Project through the show notes. Of course, you can find me at Plan A with Clay on all your favorite social media. And Sandy, you're at S Bello 829 at Instagram. I'll be sure to link down in the show notes to make sure in the
You got
description
it. You got it.
to make sure that you can connect with her as well. State of Norfolk, we are excited to see you all in early 2026. Their registration has just boomed. The speakers that are there, they all look so interesting, and we're so excited to connect with you all and some other new excitements that we'll have to share in just a bit. All right. Thanks, Andy, so much.
Thank you.
All
And
right. Peace,
thanks to
folks.
everybody out there.